Hey guys, just waiting here to invite Racquel up to speak so we can have a conversation. Some exciting things to talk about this week, which is cool in the world of off-grid living and things like that. Cool. So what do we got on the agenda today?
We're going to talk about being disruptive. That's what we're going to talk about. So for those of you that know Mike, you'll know that he does things a little differently. He doesn't always just follow the straight normal path because, besides the fact it's more interesting, it actually has better effect, in my opinion, when things are not straight. And it's the same ethos I use in my own business, that it's about causing disruption. For Mike, you cause disruption in the energy sector, and I cause disruption in the business sector, and that's what we do. But I thought today that it's such an important part of who we both are, and what our businesses stand for. But I thought it was, it's so central to all of the things that you do for off-grid, the off-grid shop, OGS, OG Tribe, everything. That I thought we'd start by talking about, let's start by asking you why you want to be disruptive. And then we'll get into some other real clear points about, energy disruption.
I know. Look, to me, I've always thought I've always wanted to do something that's going to change the world for the better, basically. So it doesn't matter what it is. And my first ever business was called Xylem Group, which is XYLEM. And Xylem Group meant growing the future, because xylem's a woody tissue in a plant that promotes growth. It's all about promoting growth and growing the future. So yeah, I like to disrupt things. I look at the way things are normally done, and I'm like, there's just such a better way to do that, and not from more of a financial point of view, but it's more the fact that there's just a better way to live life or do something which gives you more time back in your life. I think, to me, the most valuable thing you have is time. And if you can do something better and, save you more time. And I suppose that's one of the big things when I went off grid for the first time was, to me, it was more about being self-sufficient. But I was like, right, there's 30 grand. There's my power paid for the next 20 years, done. I don't have to worry about going to work each week and paying a power bill. I can turn everything on whenever I want. And it's done. So that's more to me is that, when I see something I want to do and, I think it's going to benefit more people, that's why I like to get involved in things like that. So, yeah.
Cool. Okay. So one of the things that one of your businesses, OGSS, is involved in is something that I think is a great way to be doing business, and that is peer-to-peer business. Yep. Okay. Now for this particular, for OGSS, it's about energy market peer-to-peer. But I thought that it'd be really good to help people to understand what exactly peer-to-peer is, because there's some people who are just going to go, "Oh, what's that?"
Yeah, totally. Well, it's probably, I didn't actually really understand Bitcoin, and Bitcoin's at its all-time high today, so anyone's ever bought into Bitcoin right now is profitable, basically. So there's no one that's ever lost money in Bitcoin. If you still hold Bitcoin today and brought it yesterday, you're in profit today. So when I went in a big deep dive to understand what peer-to-peer is, it's more about, it allows, it's no different to a cash society, really. That's what money really was. It allowed people to trade in between each other without big governments or banks or corporations involved, and then over the years, we've got F-POS machines, merchant facilities, and bank accounts. And, if we're not using cash, we're using the banks to be able to transact between each other. And there's a lot of good things about using a bank, there's a lot of bad things about using a bank. But what peer-to-peer does, and I suppose with Bitcoin, and when I first got involved in cryptocurrencies, what I really learned to understand, it's about how digitally two people can transact between each other without a big corporation involved. And Bitcoin's just a bit of code. It's all it is. It's a public ledger that keeps a record, and no one needs to be involved, really. That, you and I could transfer wealth between us, like money between you and I, and we wouldn't need a bank involved, basically, and do that digitally. That's what it allows for. So, that peer-to-peer allows people to transact between each other without corporations, but more, I suppose, it's more valuable these days because we do require software to make it happen these days, or computer technology. So, most of the companies that bank that software are banks, and they make a fee and make money out of it. So, yeah.
Okay. So it's kind of like a digital era version of bartering, where you have what I've got and we go and swap, and we don't go to the middleman. There's no market in the middle. It's just but a digital version of it. So there's that sort of third thing involved. Okay, so when it comes to energy peer-to-peer trading, which is what OGS does, what's the sort of idea behind that? Just explain that a bit more, because I know there's two sides to that. There's the side if I'm the consumer that's attached on the grid, blah blah blah, and then there's the side that if you've actually got solar and you're on the grid, then you can sell. So there's a two-way street there. So can you kind of explain the bits of the two-way street?
Yeah, so like with what we're doing with the OGSS and using Get Local Vaults, so people have gone out, and I think this is what annoys people the most. I've dealt with over the years. I suppose people call me up and say, Mike, I want to go off grid because I'm sick of bloody selling my energy to the big companies for nothing, And I've had that phone call so many times. And people put batteries in, then you explain the cost of batteries. I don't know if you read the Excel spreadsheet in the weekend about that. Yeah, it's like a 17-year payback on that job that we want to do, to install batteries. They just don't make sense financially. So the reality of the years, people have been putting batteries up because they don't want to give their money away to the big company. They'd rather lose money than give it to a big corporation that can make money out of them, So what the peer-to-peer with the energy trading basically means that if you have a solar system and you are feeding excess back to the grid, we don't have to give it to Origin or AGL or Energy Australia. We can take that energy and we can find someone on the market, and that's what we're doing as a part of our OGSS business. So we take everyone that's got solar, and we take your excess solar every day and we sell it to businesses. So we go out and find a small business and say, hey, you're using energy between 9 and 3 o'clock. I've got a customer that's at work between 9 and 3 o'clock with a big solar system, and they'd rather sell it to you for 6 cents than sell it to Origin for 6 cents, and Origin's going to sell it for 45, basically. So,
okay. When you do that, because this is, I've heard you talk about this, so I would just sort of ask some questions that it's always made me go, okay. You talk about the fact that you can direct it directly to another person.
Yep.
So it's like, let's say, it's you and your mum, or you and me, or something like that. That you've got excess energy, I need energy, and it's a way of doing it where it basically gets direct to the person that you want.
That's it.
Yeah. Okay. So just as a example for this, if I've got excess energy, so obviously it helps those people that need energy, right? It reduces their bills. It does this. But if I've got excess energy, it's also an opportunity for me to basically disrupt things and make some money out of it at the same time. Avoiding the big things, but I actually have the potential to make money out of it if I'm producing enough electricity. Yep.
Which it's hard. We have to wear two hats, because we've got customers that have solar systems that obviously invested in it. They want to make money back. Then we have customers that don't have solar systems and they want to save as much as possible. So if we forget about the money, what would really make the peer-to-peer economy work and valuable for everyone, if the buyer was willing to pay the same amount of energy buying peer-to-peer as what the seller was actually what they're currently buying right now. So if someone's currently buying energy for 40 cents during the day off Origin or AGL, if the buyer was willing to pay that same amount of money to someone that had solar, those numbers would really work and really help people out, And look, this sort of market's really designed for, if you own your business, own your location, you have the ability to put solar up, solar's a no-brainer. That's the best financial return you'll ever do. But if you're a business and you rent, you're on a first floor level, you can't put solar up. I'm a real big fan of just forgetting about the money and just buying from another energy, because there could be another business in town. Like, this is what the message I'm really trying to get across to our local business owners here is saying, look, I come into your coffee shop and I buy coffee from you, I can sell Dave solar from the motel. There's a huge, big 30 kilowatt system up. He's not using it all right now because the floods, he hasn't opened the rooms back up. You've got a little coffee shop. You can buy his solar source off him. So rather than him selling it to Origin for 6 cents or AGL, and then them selling it to you for 40, well, just buy it from Dave for 40.
And it's got that flow-on effect, and this is our disruptive part. That flow-on effect of you are actually helping the people around you.
Exactly.
As well. Everyone gets a good deal. Everybody gets a better deal than what they're currently getting from the big guys by going to the smaller guys, and just actually and you're keeping money within an economy, like within a regional economy. In your case, where you are, you keep money in a regional economy. And because I'm how I feel about the circular nature of economics. It's that it's not a trickle down thing. It should be very circular, where totally. You sort of saving each other, helping each other out. We'll buy off you, then you buy off us, and it just goes around and around. So I think that's a really good thing. I'm going to totally switch, almost not totally opposite, but it's still within the energy market. You sent me this article yesterday, which I found really interesting. The one about the national energy market is not made for renewable energies. Yep. You remember that article?
Yep.
I just thought that sometimes in some of these little discussions we have, these articles bring up questions that obviously I don't know the answers to, but I always like to know your take on these kind of articles, because we've talked about this before when we talked on the podcast, and I talked about wanting to move to different places, and we talked about Tassie, and we were saying that most of Tasmania's energy is from renewable energy. That's how they do it down there. And I was wondering what the big difference is, from this article, what they're talking about, but what is the big difference? Why is Tasmania able to get away with renewable energy, but basically what's the article going through and talking about, and that kind of thing. I thought it'd be a good discussion point.
So the reason Tasmania is 100% renewable, and I suppose what they're talking about is it's controlled from the hydro. So it's all from one way. They can send the energy out to the network, and everyone can use it, and then they can reduce it when everyone's not using it, and they can turn it down. What also happens in Tasmania, they have the connector, they call it, from Tasmania to the mainland. So basically, if Victoria needs some excess power, and this is what I just don't get, if Victoria runs on dirty coal, why is Tasmania just not pumping that hydro flat out 24/7 and running all the extra energy back to Australia? Because then it's 100% renewable. And then basically Victoria will be getting more power from Tasmania, which is hydro, so renewable energy. So it's because, that there allows with the network is controlled from one central point of connection. So what they're saying with this here is the problem where it's not connected it's not from renewable energy. So the headline's a bit of a, misleading. It's more that it's not set up to actually take energy backwards. So from rooftop solars, because it's all pressure. If you think about electricity as pressure, so all these solar systems pushing one way, the coal generators pushing the other way, and they're going to meet in the middle, and something will explode one day, if they can't control everything. And we're at a point right now where a lot of the coal generators have had to retrofit them and change them, where most of the day, most of the coal generators turn off, and they don't or they go to their minimum base load that they can operate at. And it takes about 40 minutes to ramp a coal generator up and down. And this is, one of the problems right now is if it takes 40 minutes to ramp it up and down, and we got all this rooftop solar cranking back to the grid, and a cloud comes over, if they can't ramp their generator up fast enough to dispatch the demand to meet everything, we have blackouts.
Okay.
Does that make sense? So
what the article's really talking about, the fact that we don't have the infrastructure to use all that solar energy that we're creating on roofs that we've got, and keep the grid going that way. Is that what it's saying?
And look, I don't really understand why they don't use frequency to control, because they do use frequency to turn people's hot water on. So so if you have a off-peak hot water system, what they do, they change the frequency of the network, and then that literally will activate a relay which turns the circuit onto your hot water, and your hot water starts heating. So that's what they do when they want to dump energy. When there's too much energy, they want to get rid of it in the middle of the day, they turn everyone's hot water on. So off-grid, when we do off-grid designs and we use grid connect inverters, we use frequency to control the off-grid inverters. So when someone's batteries are full, the off-grid inverter that we install will normally send a signal. It'll change the frequency. And, there's 3 different frequencies we set that, you know, to ramp down, throttle right back or turn off completely, you know, when it gets to 53 hertz. So the network has the ability to, I actually don't know why they don't use that tool. There's a lot of crude ways they're doing it in Queensland. In Queensland at the start of the year, they were saying, and I think it's still the rule right now, you have to put this contactor in. If you're going to put a big solar system in or an EV charger and any new air conditioner, they literally press the button and change the frequency. And just like your hot water, it disconnects everything. So if you're charging your car or your solar system or your aircon, is actually going to turn off instantly. So we're using the frequency control with the way we do it off grid. We wind things up and down. So literally, when customers' batteries are getting full and they're not using energy, we will change the frequency, reduce the output of the inverter so it doesn't produce so much. Or if the customer turns a kettle on or plugs their electric car in, the inverter will ramp straight back up and start powering that load. So yeah, I think it's one of those things where we've accelerated so fast the technology and the network hasn't caught up to be able to provide the service to control everyone.
I'm just take it off the screen. I just wondered, just from a business perspective, if it was going to, it sounds like it's one thing to do it on a small system, right? But when we're talking the whole entire grid here and these big electricity companies, it does sound like there may be a basically cost ratio issue, whether or not they know that the world is changing and that there's going to be this need for more renewable energies versus coal energy. So maybe it's just like it's not worth it for certain things at the moment. I mean, it's always for the bottom line for them, right? It's not about any other thing. It's always about the bottom line. So it'd be interesting to see how that goes and how that changes, because it just sounds to me, when you explain it, it's like, well, that sounds so simple. Why aren't we doing that?
Well, mate, in Victoria, I think it's Victoria this month now, every new solar system has to be on demand response, which is they will ramp the inverter up and down, you know? So, So the big question we get all the time with grid connected people, they're unhappy they get export limited, basically. So, which basically means if you put a 10 kilowatt solar system up, you can only feed 5 kilowatts back to the grid.
Okay.
So, and look, that confuses me because I'm a bit like, well, and I've got a customer that builds these transformers down in South Australia, and I asked him this question, and he said, mate, it's just stupidity. But because a lot of people say, oh, you know, it's a 100 kilowatt transformer. It can only give 100 kilowatt one way. It can't take it back the other way. Yeah. And, you know, my customer said to me, mate, it's not true. It's bi-directional. You know, you can feed it up or down. It doesn't matter. There's nothing inside that stops it from going either way. You know, it's just, there would be more losses and things like that. And, yeah, so I really don't know whether that's true or not, whether you can send it back up to the high voltage, low voltage, but both ways. I've got some smaller scale stuff I do here at home, and it works. So, but that's what people get, like this 5 kilowatts. So they're not allowed to feed more back than 5. In most rural areas, it's 3. The reason that is normally it's because of the size of the transformer. They don't want too many people feeding back to it at one time. But also as well as voltage rise. The more energy you push back to the grid, because remember we talked about pressure, and when you're pushing back, your inverter has to raise the voltage of the grid. So if the grid's 240 volts, it raises the grid voltages. And then what happens is your neighbor starts pushing back and it wants to be higher than that one. And everyone starts raising the voltages where they get to 257 volts. And there's been a big thing in Victoria, actually, where they've been talking about all these grid voltages rising. And they proved that energy companies were making more money because they were increasing the voltages. So where the grid volts should really be 220, 230 volts, basically. So, yeah, so with that feed in with the 5 kilowatts back, what's going to happen now in the demand response, what we started this conversation about, was they're going to let people's systems feed as much energy back to the grid as possible, and it'll be controlled by, if the grid voltages come up, they'll ramp down. And my house has been like this for maybe 2.5, maybe 3 years. I've had my house on the demand response, and that's allowed me, instead of me feeding 5 kilowatts back to the grid, and one of the things I did to upgrade my house, I upgraded to 3-phase energy. Because even when I was single phase, my demand response, I was allowed to put 5, and it was going like 6 or 7. So it wasn't a huge amount of extra energy I was getting back. The minute I went 3-phase, I feed back 20 kilowatts all day, every day. So because my solar system was balanced over 3 different phases, and if there was a phase that's not using as much energy for a customer up the street or using more, my solar will push more energy to that phase, and it's allowed my solar to produce so much more energy. So that demand response is going to be a game changer for the industry.
Yeah, I think maybe when we meet next week, we might do because I know this is a big thing for you, and it's just listen to you talk about that, is the technology, the smart technology that's needed to make these things work. Okay.
Yep.
So I know in your home you've got smart technology everywhere that does all these things. So maybe next week we can do a little wander, like you can go and show us some things, because when all of this that we're talking about, for the majority of us that don't have the brain like you think about these things, it does seem like that the sticking point that makes it work well is the technology behind it.
Yep.
Would you agree that it's the technology that makes all this work
Yep.
so simple? Because I don't have to go out and try and figure out what's going on.
No, and if
thing and go, yep.
That's it. And the other thing as well, if you purchased a really good inverter, like I've never been one to sell cheap inverters. And when I say cheap, just a dumb inverter, basically. We've sold low-cost inverters over the years, but all the low-cost inverters that we've done have always been upgradable, smarts, and that sort of stuff. And like a lot of if you have a Solar Edge, a Fronius, a FEMA, an SMA, a Goodwee is a really good low-quality, a low-cost inverter, not low-quality, low-cost. All those inverters with a software update SunGrow's another one, have demand response built into them. So done. You can literally upgrade the software, and then your inverter, then if you're someone that's limited on the feeding back to the grid, you can get the demand response to turn on, and that will push a ton of energy back or turn it down, when it's not needed. So yeah.
Because that's the thing I think will be good to explore in the next few weeks, because I know things like that you have something that turns off your lights overnight and turns off all your bits and pieces so that it's not on. We talked about this in the last one. So I think it's a good thing to explore in the future. It'll be a great topic, because it's the way we live now. We do live reliant on all this sort of stuff. And if you are like you, where you're not out just relying on just solar power, there's you're actually grid connected as well. You're going to have a lot of these appliances, a lot of these extra things that it's always good to know. And yep. Because I'm one of those people that wants to be able to walk into my house and say lights on.
Well, we don't even do that. So I've actually just installed a sensor. So I like to work on sensors. So,
okay. Oh, I want that. That's better. I want to be able to say
Our dining room table, which is it's in the corner of the one big lounge room, but as you come down the stairs, it turns on, and overnight it turns on really light. So it's enough to see, but it's not blinding. And there's times of the day where it comes on, it's really bright. And what I'm trying to do is, so with the energy prices at home, because we're connected to the grid and we play around with the buy and sell the wholesale prices. So what I want to do, I want to be able to go, right, when the prices are higher than 60 cents a kilowatt hour, I want one of the lights to go red, and when it's in the minuses or we're getting paid to use energy, I want it to go green. So just the easiest way to understand it. I've actually got a light which I'm going to say, Bronson, that's the light I want to make work and make it smart. So but the other thing as well, the biggest thing confused me is the colors, because overnight, if it's more than 60 cents and we have our batteries, we could be selling and making money. So it's like, that should really be green. So I'll have to get into set up that it's like, well, to understand that we're not using batteries, we're on the grid, don't turn it on,
Yeah.
So we'll use from the grid. So
no, wait. I just like all that smart technology stuff. So I'm like, yeah, let's do that. I think that's a good thing.
Actually, the one I've got at home, it's a screw-in bulb from Bunnings. It's a Philips Hue setup.
Yeah.
The catch with the Philips Hue ones, though, there is actually some other ones. You need to buy the Hue, which is, I think, maybe $150, Bunnings do have a lot of other smart lights which do the same thing, all with an app. But I love the motion sensor. You just connect them to your Wi-Fi network and just turn. And it was funny. Our house, we're the only house in the middle of 7 acres in the middle of town. There's one street light you can hardly see except through our bedroom window. But our property was really dark, and it was only after the floods I thought, I'm fixing this. So I put all the smart lights up around the house, and Now when you walk around out the back or front, all the lights come on and you can see what you're doing. You have to have a torch for your phone.
Yeah, but don't the animals set them off?
No. So,
okay.
Yeah, so,
that would freak me out. You know, you've sent me pictures of you and the snakes out the side of your house. So lucky that a snake would set it off would be enough to make me go, yep, nope. So,
there would be certain times, but they actually have got a sensitivity of them of what they'll censor of the size of an animal or a human.
Yeah.
So you can actually set them and change in the sensor to say, do you want to be able to censor animals? Yes or no. So, which makes sense. And you'll get told whether it's an animal or a human that set it off. So,
okay. So that veered off from our energy discussion, but requires energy to do it. And it's just that sort of thought. So,
yeah. But look, all these things in an off-grid point of view, like, if you're off-grid and you want to be self-sufficient, save money, it's more about just, I remember when we first took a house off-grid, it was always like, turn the lights off and this and that. It becomes so much hard work. And I can only imagine for doing that for 50 years, where if you can automate things and things just work, like for us, you walk into a room, the light turns on, it's on for 10 minutes, you walk out, it turns off, So it's just easy, it just allows you to get on your life and spend your life doing more meaningful things. And like, as an example for us, we, on the weekend, this is, we left and we forgot to turn the air conditioners off. So I did log in and turn them off and didn't check again though. So one of them turned off, but when we were driving, we had bad phone service, and the other one, I was like, why are we using so much battery capacity? I was like, that second aircon didn't turn off. Yeah. So that allowed me, like if I didn't have those smarts, that would have been on all weekend, So allows you to do that stuff. So
and it is, because the whole ethos behind the just being the disruptive force, whether it's peer-to-peer energy trading, whether it's sort of in my business and the way we do things, is that we shouldn't be the more we can reduce costs, or the more we can help other people reduce costs, or the more we can increase incomes, the more we can do all those kind of things, allows us to actually have a life that isn't just work. And I know that's a massive thing with you. I know that you cut off at a certain time in the afternoon and that's it, because it's family time, and I do the same thing. There's days where I'm off. And I think that's one of those advantages of being disruptive, even just in something as like the energy market, that if you're saving, if you're a business or you're a homeowner, or you can, you go off grid, or you are still grid connected, but you've got you're creating energy and you're peer-to-peer trading. There's such an easy thing to do, because you don't actually, once it's done, it's done. It's like with the peer-to-peer trading, we're not asking people to go in and actually do the trades themselves. That's not how that system
works. It's
not
like crypto.
No. So it really is to say, you get on, you get it, set it up, and it does its thing. And it's such an easy thing to do to make a difference in your life, like in a person's life.
Yeah. The biggest thing I see, like, I used to work with this guy, and he always used to say, people are as honest as they are profitable. And it's so true. It's just like, I see people that hate big energy companies, like AGL, Origin Energy Australia, and they're like, they rip us off, blah, blah, blah. But then you offer them a small company and they're like, the prices are a bit more expensive. It's like, well, we need to support smaller businesses, and that's how they can bring their prices down by getting more customers. Like, I think Origin have 80% of retail customers in Australia. That's it. So, they could drop 10% off what they charge people and still make more money than the rest of them put together,
When we've had this discussion in terms of just business economics in general, it is not, they get you into a cycle because they pay you low wages, and then you have to budget so closely that you end up going and buying the thing from the big company because it is able to be a little bit cheaper. Whereas, if what you can do is save some money on one thing like electricity, because you're doing this, or if you've got the extra electricity and you peer-to-peer trade it, you can get them to save money. That means that they can keep the money in the local area. They can keep the money with the small businesses. And the more, and my whole business is built around this, that the more small and medium enterprises there are out there, the better we all are, not just one. That's that circular thing. The more we can avoid the big companies, the better we are. Without being, because we're never going to all avoid the big companies. We live in a country where we have 2 supermarkets. We can't. In the end, you're never going to always avoid them. But I do think that changing that market share. So from an energy perspective, changing the market share that Origin or AGL or whatever have by having more of these peer-to-peer things happening, and more of the smaller providers, like Get Local Vaults, like more of those kind of things, then in the end, it will actually help people. And it's this way of doing it without it actually hurting you in terms of, wow, I have to decide, am I going to do this or this? Because everybody wins in this situation. And I love that. I love that about the whole Get Local Vaults thing. Everybody wins.
Yeah. That's it. Look, one thing it's funny, the cost of changing to, go to getlocalvaults.com and swap over to those guys, like, what people don't realize, and the big thing is, like, you can swap over to those guys and save money. Like, if you play the game right and get involved, you'll save money. Like, you'll be better off. There's no two ways about that. But even, if you're paying the same, great, the other person is making more money, but you can get access to cheap solar energy without actually paying for a solar system, like free.
Yeah.
You sign up. If you find it's complicated, we run a business. We do the buys and sells and trades and all the thing on the back end for everyone. But people don't take in that consideration of like 9 months of the year with using that software, you can get paid to use energy. I was talking to Bronson about this morning. Come after May, we've got June, July, August, September, October, November, December. We've got 7 months, and most of the time prices are in the minuses in the middle of the day.
Yeah.
So sort of 11 to 2 o'clock, if you have the ability to be at home and use energy, you're going to get paid to use the energy. But people think, I'll put solar up. It's the same thing. You put solar up and you work of a day, you're not going to get the benefit of it. The game of putting solar up, feeding back to the grid, and feeding back enough of a day to compensate your nighttime, those days are gone. It's also great for people that rent, whether you're renting a business, like a building for a business, or you rent, like if you use enough electricity as a renter in a residential place, it's worth it as well, because we don't have the power to put solar up on our roof, it's not like we can do that. So it's something we get to do that obviously, like I said, it benefits you in so many ways, but it benefits the broader society in terms of, we change some economic things. It benefits the broader society because obviously solar power is better than coal power for the planet. That's a pretty obvious, indisputable fact, right? That's better. So all up, you get to actually do something. And I always feel like to me, something like that is such a win-win situation, because I'm going to win in a way financially, and I win in a way that I get to affect actually society and the planet and all these other things. And I really don't have to do anything other than sign up. I don't, it's not like I have to sit there and, even though personally I'd probably love sitting there and trading all the time. I could get a little obsessed. So, maybe I won't do it, but I get a little obsessed. I'll just leave that to you to do for me. Because I'm watching the figures all day. But even like from a, I was just thinking about this morning. When I wrote that email this morning to go out to everyone on our email list, is just like we can be our own power generator with the technologies there, the infrastructure's there these days. We literally, we could buy community batteries, and like even my place, we're working at the moment trying to get a 90 kilowatt hour battery in my place, and I'm just explain to Bronson how it's going to work, and forget my house, this battery's going to trade in front of my main switch basically. So it'll just be for the meter. My house won't see this system or whatever, and its job is going to be of a nighttime, we're going to pump 80 kilowatt hours of energy back to the grid between 7 and 5 o'clock to protect our customers and sell that energy. And we work the numbers on, if we just sell at base price, it's a 20% return per annum on your money. So, if you, within 5 years, in 5 years, I've worked out every $5,000 you put back in, you're $1,000 up. So you've got your initial investment back plus, and you own an asset, which is pretty crazy. So by just trading energy overnight, and then that's disrupting and taking power away from Origin, Energy Australia, and these big guys that say, we can jack the price up to whatever, because that's the other big problem I see in Australia, is they call them gentailers, which is the generator retailers. If the price goes through the roof, Origin don't care what the wholesale price is, because they're the ones selling the energy for the $16,000. they win either way. It doesn't matter what the prices are. They always win.
Yeah.
You know.
And in an economy our size, we don't have a lot of competition, so it's not like you can have massive competition in this field. So it is that you know, when we say it, I know we both love the word that it's disruptive, but it really is, because it's the ability to disrupt on a number of levels, and I think that's why it's such a good thing. So cool. Well, there you go.
Totally.
Thanks for
even into cars. Like cars is another whole different story of what can be done with a portable battery. You know, like
we've got that. We'll do that either next. So maybe we'll do that next week, and the week after we'll do a little.
That one's staying a secret. Oh, that one's staying a secret.
Okay, we'll do a walk around the house maybe next week and have a look.
I've genuinely been thinking about how I do my microphone. Get a really long I'll just do it on my mobile phone, I suppose I could. But I was thinking about getting a really long USB cord to be able to walk around and take my camera next door.
Yeah, we'll work it out. Well, maybe you can film it and then we can show it on screen and we can talk through it. That's probably a good idea. But I think that's a good idea. I think the more we can show people this in action. So everyone that's out there that's watching this and listening to this, the more that we can show you how we actually are doing it on a daily basis, it makes it so not seem like this pie in the sky. I can't do that. It's too much complication. And you sort of realize people like me we need to understand it at a base level, but we don't need to understand the nitty gritty. We have mics. The mics of the world can go, okay, this is how you do it. Okay.
That's it. And like, there's so many services these days where you can just plug into it and they'll just, you know, like control it. VPP is a big thing floated around, which I'm not a fan of, VPPs. Which are virtual power plants, but they literally end up costing, well, Origin at the moment pretty much given people Tesla power walls to put in VPPs, but it's the big companies that benefit from the VPPs, not the end user, you know. So they're just using your house and your infrastructure and not paying for the benefit of that. That's the biggest thing I said. You get a tiny bit of what's offered on the table, and I think with this whole peer-to-peer and the software that we're using and stuff, you can choose. If you want to give it away for nothing, great, you can, you know. But if you want to make a fortune and go, well, no, I want to play that game and there's money on the table, this is what I want for it. You log in, code it, and it's done, you know. So it's good to go.
Yeah,
awesome.
Cool. Okay, thank you very much.
All right, exciting.
We'll see you next week for hopefully a wander around your house, even if it's being pre-recorded, and we'll talk about it.
We'll talk about it.
We'll talk about it, because, you know, then I can enjoy myself and go, oh, I want one of those. Oh, I want one of those.
Sounds good.
Okay.
All right, mate.
Okay, bye.
Thanks, guys. Bye.